Okay, David here, trying to do these weekly ramblings of a chess coach. I forget where I read like ramblings of a madman, David, the chess coach, the madman. So you get my weekly rambles, kind of slow here this week. Got the kids, not much coaching to do. I'm probably going to head to synagogue. Interesting, got a new woman convert leading services for the first time. The liberal synagogue should be interesting. Got a pawn, kid dropped a pawn. Yeah, not much serious coaching to do, so just help set up the boards. And probably going to head to the synagogue for they got services at 6, used to be at 7. But I wanted to ramble about some thoughts on consciousness and maybe, do regular rambles related to consciousness that thinking about different things. And yeah, I like the museum. I think I'm going to head up to the Diego Rivera Lounge. And, chess is a really good game. It's a good program for the kids. There's a lot of benefit, to the whole city with the results. And obviously, kids are producing good results. My chess career is basically hit a standstill. Anyone who saw my attempted stream and actually got raided by like these teenagers, I can't really pass the expert level. It's too much effort in the memorization and practice. So, for me to improve much more at chess is basically impossible. However, I had a lot of thoughts on consciousness this week. I had an interesting conversation with Church of Entropy and Will to Power in her channel, and was thinking about archetypes and the consciousness and how that applies to the hard problem of consciousness, how that applies to okay, sorry, my internet connection went out. I think I got automatic connection here, so hopefully I get good reception. This is a pretty cool room. If people seen a tour of the armor room, my mother was the lawyer for the museum here. So here's your antique gun collection. So the hard problem of consciousness, obviously, Church of Entropy has it like quantum mind, but from a scientific perspective, they're really a long way off from solving the hard problem of consciousness. And so the precursor. Yeah, hopefully I got good reception. So just because we don't understand the hard problem of consciousness to truly understand how the mind works doesn't mean that we can't have useful theories, correlations, ideas that are more likely than others that are useful. Like, JF always said, if he produces a result more than 50% of the time, it's useful to load things that give you a much higher correlation. So every Friday they have a concert here in the Rivera Lounge. I'm going to head to synagogue, but they're pretty cool. A lot of famous musicians, the famous murals here from Diego Rivera going back. So these are pretty cool. I've sat and meditated in this room many times, kind of like communist leanings and Ford, the history of Ford, Albert Kahn, the Jewish architect who built the museum and built much of Ford Motor Company architecturally. So it's just a nice place to meditate and think about in the free concert here. So I'll go back to the chess playing, but I thought maybe I'd come up here to share some thoughts. So I was thinking of Isaac Newton, who, so to say, invented the calculus. And Newton had, this concept of the relationship between position, velocity, and acceleration. So anyone who knows calculus, the derivative will get you from acceleration to velocity to position, or the integral will get you from position to velocity to acceleration. And Newton had intuited this relationship and kind of designed the calculus to explain how this relationship between position, velocity, and acceleration works. So from that perspective, I thought it'd be very, very interesting to solve the hard problem of consciousness that you probably have to invent like a new mathematic, something that would completely overthrow the understanding. So we're talking Christianity. I like the museum here. We got a lot of ancient artifacts. We got so I come here mostly to coach chess, but it's a nice atmosphere to think and meditate at the museum, and obviously for the kids who, at the end of the week of school, to think about their future and socialize with other kids or even adults with the game of chess. It's interesting here. We got the Prentice Court, which when I was a kid, I volunteered in a nursing home for my bar mitzvah. The same man who worked for General Motors, Prentice, who was the Prentice nursing home. So I think this is his wife, the Prentice Court, the donator of the hall. So, in order to do bar mitzvah, I did community service, and then I went to a nursing home. And now I'm doing a similar community service in Prentice Court of coaching chess. But it's interesting, it's the same wealthy man, Prentice, who was the donor of both institutes. So I want to push forward on this concept of consciousness, archetypes, patterns, the different levels of knowledge where you have things that are more hardly scientific proven. I had the foam convention and the science of chemistry and combustion and the stuff that's more mathematical that could be reduced to equations and be what's considered scientifically proven versus patterns that are recognizable.
Yeah, we just ask you not to lean on that.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, to things that are largely considered just patterns that we could recognize that are useful, and kind of the way the brain produces consciousness, where we know we have these larger rules that are derived from higher patterns we recognize versus our sense perception. Say like people get triggered when there's a cognitive dissonance between the sense perception of the reality that we're facing versus the greater patterns that we believe in. But obviously the patterns that we work by are largely inaccurate and are a full representation of what's accurately happening. So it's you're related to when you think about how we play chess and how we recognize these patterns. When you play chess, the superior pattern recognizer is usually the victor. So when you think about consciousness and the origin of these larger patterns that we recognize, whether it comes like a receiver from spiritual realm or whether there's a learned experience, and we can't really understand. The hard problem of consciousness remains far from solved. But I had a lot of thoughts. I'm not really clearly articulating them, and like I said, I'm constantly on the battlefield to just be able to sit back and think about ideas, appreciate art. Like, I'm not an artist, I don't draw, but I was mentioning that Anthony Storr book on solitude and the great masters of the past that produced these things that are widely known many generations later were people who enjoyed solitude, people who spent most of their time by themselves and were really caught up in the world of ideas, not so much in the ideas in the world of people. And there might be a certain relationship to that where in order to accomplish really great things, you need to be able to dedicate yourself to ideas, but at the same time, sometimes duty calls, like Dharma, and you're required to show up on the battlefield. And, so that's hard to struggle with. So I might keep on doing these weekly rambles on just trying to clarify my thoughts on consciousness and relate it to chess coaching, because how the brain produces thoughts and recognizes patterns. Chess is one of the greatest examples, and we have this great program, obviously, where the kids are winning and they're doing good and producing these great results. So go back towards the chess, but hope I don't lose reception again. Hope there's good quality, otherwise I'll have to delete it. I see no one's watching. Hopefully it's not because the quality's crap. And I largely do these rambles to listen back to myself and organize my thoughts. I don't keep a diary. Olden days people may have kept diaries. I was never good with diaries. So kind of like social media, the Luke Fordism. Hey, right there. If people are interested in what I have to say, want to comment, add to my thoughts, I'll put it out there, and it's open to anyone to comment or listen or think about the same things I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about a whole bunch of things. I spent like 10 hours this week looking into universal basic income and automation. I was at the Foam Expo, and time is very limited. That's why like all this argumentation and having respectful conversations and just the allocation of time resources is very important because time is limited, and it's really these ideas that I'm struggling with that is more concerning. Like, okay, like what I'm going to speak with Owen Benjamin, what's going to come from that? Is anything going to come from that? Even the accumulation of wealth. So my name could be on the wall of the people who donated large sums of money for this museum and to make this possible. And so I got to just clear my mind. That's why I'm doing these chess rambles, and I'm really putting together. Like, I think I'm breaking progress on this hard problem of consciousness. Like, I've studied a lot of the major thoughts theologically, scientifically, and want to push forward. And like, I realize it got to be something big. Like I mentioned, Newton's creation of the calculus. In order to solve the hard problem of consciousness, is probably going to be of the magnitude or greater of Newton in the creation of calculus to solve, gravity or something like that. And so just looking at how these kids form thoughts in order to learn the game of chess is very useful for understanding this pattern ideas for the larger patterns we've already acclimated into our brain versus the direct sense perception that we're immediately experiencing. And on any level of thought, chess is a very complicated game where it's very simple at one level, where you could teach a kid in a few minutes the basic rules. There's only 6 pieces and a handful of rules. But at the same time, it's extremely complicated, and you could have the biggest computers and the greatest minds in the world thinking about these things for lifetimes and not solve the game of chess. The chess is unsolvable, although they've created computers that could beat the best humans. As far as we know, we believe that chess will never be solved, that there's more positions than a computer will ever be capable. So this concept of solving these very complicated things, we're talking like Faustian spirit about the great mysteries and great minds that use their minds to try to understand these great mysteries. And you could push a little further progress, great discovery like the foam convention, the thousands of engineers that are pushing forward minor benefits in like the materials we use in manufacture, or when I do the stream automation, all the effort and works that's used to create the automation that automatizes the world, and the social scientists and economics and politicians that are looking at the distribution of resources for how to structure how we distribute resources, and just the human nature, also the negative elements of human nature related to the human condition, that the human animal form determining function, that humans are fallible and imperfect by nature. So even if we had a computerized society, we're going to see actually that automation is going to eliminate more intellectual fields than actually just mechanical labor, where things like banking, law, even minimal artificial intelligence, where like giving out loans, researching things, medicine, these type things that actually computers will do better than the minds. And like chess, the best minds are the ones that work together with the computer. So you need the combination of the human mind and the computer. So I think I said everything that I put in this week, and was making this pushing forward on consciousness and these higher level patterns that have become accustomed to our mind, that the way we believe the world works versus the reality we see with our eyes. And E. Michael Jones had mentioned that, do you follow your eyes or do you follow the law? And the sense perception, what if my sense perception breaks the patterns that I've accustomed myself to live by? And should you go with your heart or your eyes, or should you go with scripture? Should you go with the patterns? Should you go with the sages? And so that's about it. Probably going to head down to synagogue. Hopefully this wasn't too bad quality, and maybe this time people got to see a little bit of the museum. So God bless, Shabbat Shalom. Hopefully you'll have a week in review. I might join Church of Entropy Saturday night, a week of review. Next week might be some interesting streams, and I want to keep on pushing forward on my research. So I got to follow my Dharma. I got to keep on appearing on the battlefield, and at the same time, I don't want to lose sight of my research and my studies, and my activities. I want to be a good person. I want to make a difference. I want to help out the culture and society I live in. I don't want to cause strife between man and their fellow man.